Nerd Talks.
Welcome back to Nerd Talks. We're going to talk about some nerd stuff. I am here with Mason. And today we're discussing sidekicks, the power of sidekicks, what they bring to storytelling, and eventually we'll get to the best sidekick is. But in general, I think sidekicks, a lot of the times we think about superheroes when we talk about sidekicks, but I think sidekicks come in all variety of form and in all kinds of media, and not just, superheroes. So, sometimes sidekicks are overlooked, but I think they generally bring a pretty impactful portion to the story. And you can see that with we'll just start with probably the world's most popular sidekick. That's probably just Robin. Agree? Disagree?
No, I don't think there's any question about it. I think he's 100% the sidekick.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I don't know if you could find a person on the street and go, hey, who's the first sidekick that pops in your mind? And they don't go Robin.
Robin.
Like,
yeah. And I mean, so getting into like Robin and his character and like what he brings to the story, I mean, it brings like another level. Really, you're looking at Batman, right? And you could take this for any other main hero. They obviously do complement the hero in a different way, but they have these attributes that kind of counter the lead in some aspects. Maybe not directly counter, but kind of give balance to, maybe is more correct. Where we're seeing like, sometimes we see Batman and it's like the brutality of Batman, and then it's like you get like little Robin. Originally Robin was like a little kid before we got like adult versions of Robin.
is it?
And to bring the tone down a little bit instead of just being, the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
You got Robin, who's like, in some instances is a nice kid to be around. Tim Drake and Dick Grayson, the first and third Robins are generally regarded as the ideal Robin, like the Robin that most people are used to seeing is going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, yeah, they have a lot of contrast. I mean, you can see this, but basically in a character. Other popular sidekicks. What are some of your favorite sidekicks, Goldberg? What are some of the popular ones?
See, I was gonna say, I think it's hard sometimes now to describe a sidekick because some people get too, like, you can clearly see some are sidekicks, and then others you're like, is this guy a sidekick or is he actually just the secondary main character?
Yeah, a co-lead kind of disguised as kind of like maybe, it's more of like a support role, that where they are contributing. One of my favorites, Sam Wise Gamgee, is clearly like, is the sidekick, but also is like, very, important to the story here. Not so sidelined as maybe someone like Robin is. And I think they have varying degrees of that, where it's like, this is definitely a sidekick versus this is like a co-lead, basically, but we just kind of make them secondary almost.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about them, but Sherlock and Watson, sometimes they're more equal, and then sometimes they kind of make
Watson the sidekick.
Yeah.
And I think if we look at it in that context, like the bad Sherlocks are the ones that make Watson the sidekick.
I would agree.
And I think that's just more common with like the detective themed thing, when you don't have it in a crime fighting aspect like Batman. Because there's other TV shows like Psych has an equal for Burton Guster's character to Sean Spencer.
Okay.
Who he's just the secondary lead.
Yeah.
He is not a sidekick, but like you could make an argument that because the positioning of him, he's a sidekick, but I wouldn't.
Right. Well, it's just like the title, the name of the the story and everything is kind of like talking about this one character, but the secondary character is also like equally important.
Isn't
what you could say for like Sherlock in some instances as well. Which again is not the case, I think, for Batman in a lot of instances. Batman's, I think, might be the most extreme, where it's like, this is supporting role sidekick.
Yeah.
Versus like, I don't know much about Psych, but something like that, or like Samwise or something.
Yeah. Or Phineas and Ferb. Ferb's 100% a sidekick, just as much as the main character is a sidekick.
Okay. Yeah. A very supporting role. Doesn't really have it doesn't really have the lead energy. Not even like a secondary co-lead energy to me. It's very just like, there. I think a lot of the time, the sidekicks are there. They get put into circumstances that I think the audience can relate to in a lot of instances, especially when we see, there's not a lot of times where they take a main character and they're like, what if this was you? But they give you these scenarios that are happening to the main character or primary character in some instances, where it's like the secondary character is questioning it almost in a manner as if the audience is, because the audience would also be asking this question or, be put in this situation. I'm going to come back to Frodo and Sam because I love them. And it's just like, Frodo gets put in these circumstances and we can't really relate to Frodo because he's doing something that, like no one has any relation to being able to kind of wrap their mind around what he's going through necessarily. But we can see from Sam, who's like, trying to help him, and he's like questioning some of his, decision making and kind of, what's going on. And you could say the same thing for like Batman and Robin, where Robin would be like, is this the best way we could go about it? Or I did it, but I did it, way more chill than you would do it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes Robin does not do it more chill. Sometimes Robin flies off the handle.
Well, and there you're probably talking about Jason Todd.
What? Who would ever?
Jason Todd is a sick bastard in some instances, and becomes a real, actual like psychopath, in his storyline.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's how you get a sidekick that turns villain, which I do enjoy from time to time when you get the sidekick who, goes on their own journey. And I think that's when sidekicks are very well written, is when they have their own development. And I think early in media, we didn't really have that. They were literally just like, the butt of jokes, or just there to, like I said before, balance kind of the, maybe the moral questioning that's going on in certain situations. But more and more, as we get into storytelling of different variety and over the years, and I would say obviously here in the 2000s and into the future as we go, I think we're giving the sidekicks more attention and giving them their own story or like path, their own experience that they're going through. And I really do like it when they end up turning, evil or they begin to go into a gray area where it's like, they're, and this is basically Jason Todd, where it's like they're still trying to do good, but the way they're going about it is,
they're
question.
They're turning into an anti-hero. Yeah, we're just like, I don't know if you can necessarily be doing that, but I guess to do it someone that we don't like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say too, like wrestling, like sports entertainment version, they also have sidekicks. You'll have characters who have I think one of the biggest examples I could use for people who are older would be the $1 Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, who had his $1 Million championship, was super rich, had his butler, Virgil, and that was his sidekick. Sure. And eventually we get to the point where, because Ted DiBiase is a bad guy, and Virgil's been helping him cheat all this time, right? That eventually Virgil steps out of the shadow, he becomes the good guy. So you can also do it in the reverse too, and that happens a lot in wrestling.
Okay.
But I do like it more when it's like, there's the good guy, and they're out, and they have their buddy, and they're like, they're doing it together, but this person's still clearly the sidekick, they're in their shadow, and then all of a sudden they do come out, and they're just like, they beat up this main person. Like, I don't even want to do something bad to someone else, I want to do it to that person.
Another good example of something similar is Captain America and Bucky Barnes. Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes. So Bucky in the comics originally was like a younger hero who was kind of helping him, and then in more recent iterations, we're getting an older version where he's just like friends with Steve Rogers, who has become Captain America.
Yeah.
And basically in every rendition of this situation, he becomes the Winter Soldier, who is basically a villain to start, mind control villain, but a villain nonetheless, who ends up still becoming kind of an anti-hero. And I think that's a really good example, again, of us taking the sidekick and kind of giving them, more.
Yeah.
What other sidekicks do we have? We have so many sidekicks.
We haven't gone to Nintendo sidekicks yet. That's what I was going to go.
Okay. Yeah. So I got more stuff to talk about directly about sidekicks and like the types of sidekicks. But let's just list out some kind of sidekicks, and we can kind of just touch on them briefly. So you said Nintendo.
Yeah, Luigi.
Okay, Mario and Luigi.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Luigi is 100% a sidekick, and by proxy, not that he's truly a main character, but Wario's sidekick at Waluigi.
One hand.
Yeah, I mean, for being a tennis villain, he's just a sidekick at this point. And then there's all of Ash's sidekicks, or I guess they would call them like traveling companions. But
Yeah,
they're all just
sidekicks. Yeah.
So you have what? You have Brock, Misty, Tracy, Silent from Gen 5, Dawn from Gen 4, May from Gen 3, Max is in Gen 3. Gen 6 there's Iris in Gen 5, and Gen 6 there's Clement, Bonnie, Serena in Gen 7. No, I think I don't think I can go any further. But
yeah, and well, in their circumstances, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but he's got two sidekicks, and one of the sidekicks is almost like sometimes the comic relief, where they're giving kind of this funny person or this person who makes funny comments. So like Misty and Brock, because everyone's kind of familiar with those. So like Brock is that comic relief, but then also is like super intelligent. And then Misty's kind of like the counter to Ash, where it's kind of like we have this in-group kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And I like that they did that, not that we just have one sidekick and try to pack everything in, personality-wise into that one character. We kind of split it up amongst a couple. Yeah, who else we got? We got so many sidekicks.
God, back on the spot again after you. I was too deep in the Pokemon hole. I went too far down. You name some for a second.
Sure. We can go into Star Wars. We got Chewbacca to Han.
Okay.
Pretty like iconic sidekick there, where it's like definitely he's just a sidekick. So I do have a question. I don't know how much you know about Star Wars, but is Obi the hero and Anakin's the sidekick, or is Anakin the hero and Obi-Wan is the sidekick, even though Obi-Wan is the mentor?
Depends on which point you're at in the story.
All right. I like it.
There are definitely times where their roles flip-flop, and I think that's just because of how the narrative story is written.
Sure.
So like you get to that point of he's turning, and I would say around that time is when you have to start changing your perspective from him being the mentor to they're almost equals at this point. And at what point does Obi-Wan start playing the role of the sidekick that's coming back up?
Sure. Another good sidekick who I think is right in the middle between secondary character and then also just a full-on sidekick, where it's just like the definitive sidekick definition. I think the midpoint and the clearest that I can think of example of being right in the center of all of it is Donkey from Shrek. He has his own scenes by himself. He's got his own storyline and plot going on in the scenario. But he does do a lot of just really sidekick-like things.
Yeah.
He's like the comic relief.
He does.
He kind of is just hanging out there.
Yeah, but the story also wouldn't be the same without him.
Yeah, so I think he's right in the center. I think he's the, he's not Robin.
Yeah.
And he's not Sam. I think he's right there.
That I think I'd agree with that one. Yeah.
What do you think about support sidekicks that are like Cortana? Have you played Halo? Do you know what Cortana is? Okay. Oof.
I think we've covered this before.
Yeah.
A little too young for that.
I'm trying to think of someone who's like Cortana. Cortana is the AI in Master Chief's suit, essentially.
Oh, she's like
She's a. I don't want to upset any Halo nerds, but because I don't know exactly, but I'm under the impression that she's like some kind of computer program that's like in his helmet that he like put there, and it's not like a standard thing that all of the Spartans would get.
Okay.
Another example would be like Jarvis in
got it. Okay,
Man, where it's just like it's this, you know. Is that still a sidekick? Do you still consider them a sidekick?
I would think so. I would think
Is like your butler.
Well, I would say there are certain points where Alfred, like in the Dark Knight, I think Alfred is just a sidekick because we don't have a Robin.
Yeah.
So
In that instance, for sure.
yeah, for sure. And I think like Avengers, Jarvis is just a sidekick up until he's the villain.
Have you watched The Mandalorian?
Mad to completion.
Says Grogu just sorry.
Oh, I don't. Because I don't know what Grogu does. What does Grogu do that would make him a sidekick?
It's just like the little creature pal that's with him, the little alien buddy that's with him, who like does like cute little things. Like Baby Yoda, if you
No, I know.
yeah.
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 I don't know. But does he like contribute anything to the story other than being cute?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, well, he's like the kind of the main plot line, but he's like not the main character.
Oh, all right.
It's like the main plot line surrounds about, or at least in the first season, where it's like we're trying to spoilers, trying to protect this kid or whatever, and save him, right? So is he like the main character? Not really, because the focus and point of view comes from Mando.
Sure. You know, some other sidekicks. I'm sure he'll love to talk about these.
Sure.
Ronald Weasley, Hermione Granger.
Oh yeah.
Very important sidekicks.
Yeah, another duo group of sidekicks. I love duo sidekicks because it allows you to have two different personalities without trying to cram everything into one. Yeah, fantastic.
And it, like, I think Harry Potter's just fun, but also just the dynamic that you get alone just from the sidekicks. Like, you take Harry out of the equation, you still have quite the dynamic with just Ron and Hermione alone.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think those are some pretty good sidekicks.
Oh, yes. Fantastic sidekicks. I could go into a full Harry Potter thing about sidekicks. Snape is just the sidekick to Dumbledore.
Yep.
For sure. But also Voldemort.
I mean, not by his own choice, but yes.
Well, I mean, technically by his choice, sort of.
It's just as much Dumbledore's choice as it is his, you know, like.
Sure. Did you have more?
No. I was just thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we have all different kinds of sidekicks. I mean, types of sidekicks that we usually get is like a loyal partner. And that's something like Donkey or Sam, where it's like we're really dedicated to the cause that the main character is bringing us. You have more of just a comic relief where it's just like the humor is part of whatever media it is. And sometimes it's the heart too, where it's like they keep you grounded in the scenario, even when it's, you know, maybe something very serious or dramatic. But something like the protege or the apprentice, in some instances that was Anakin, I think.
It was all three of your Robins.
Yeah, all the Robins for sure. I'm trying to think of more. Falcon, really. To Steve.
Well, War Machine's also a sidekick.
War Machine is a sidekick. Yeah, I mean, we could go through. The MCU has a lot of sidekicks that we don't even like register necessarily that they are sidekicks, but they really are. War Machine, Valkyrie, Falcon. Thor's got a whole little crew of sidekicks.
Yeah, the rock guy.
I was gonna say, Korg. Loki is his sidekick for a little while. Is Thor's sidekick in the second movie for a little while.
Thanos has a sidekick that turns on.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. The blue one. Nebula.
That's his daughter.
Yeah, she's a sidekick though. When you first introduced her, she's a sidekick.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, she eventually becomes not a sidekick, but to start, she's just sidekick.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Also makes Gamora a sidekick as well. Yeah. Because it'd be Thanos and then the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And their two sidekicks leave.
I think you're introduced in a different way to Gamora, but like when you look at her story overall, she's a sidekick that becomes a main character.
Yeah.
Yondu you consider, even though he's like the mentor to Star-Lord, he would be a sidekick.
He kind of is a sidekick, but then he also becomes a leader in his own right and has a sidekick. Kraglin is a sidekick.
Mm-hmm. So a sidekick can have a sidekick.
A sidekick can, I think, have a sidekick. Yeah, I think you can have multiple levels of sidekicks because I think in different parts of the story, you're looking at it, right? And it's like, this guy's sidekick. But then this guy's kind of his sidekick. Is it? Rocket's the main character and Groot is the sidekick.
Yeah, for sure.
We could sit here on MCU, I think, all day.
T'Challa's sister is the sidekick in number 1.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Spear Lady. Can't think her name.
Almost definition sidekick.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh. Because Spider-Man's coming out later this year. That is just a sidekick.
Ned is a sidekick. And Ned is very, very particular too because Ned Leeds is actually spoilers for comics that have been out for almost 80 years or whatever. Is Hobgoblins. Yeah. So that's a storyline that I think we're gonna get eventually.
For sure. I think by proxy too, some love interests are also sidekicks. Like if we look at MJ in the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, she's a sidekick.
For sure.
If we look at it in like the context of like Tobey Maguire, I would not say that.
No, it's a sidekick. Not a sidekick. So Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Mans, I would say sidekick. Yep. She definitely is like first involved in a lot of the things that he's doing. Yeah, I mean, I think it does make the story more interesting too. And I think we've moved more towards that as far as the love interest is kind of what I'm getting at here. Which isn't a type of sidekick that I have listed here in the show notes, but definitely should be. Because I think that's a good point to bring up, because I think more and more as we go, we develop more in our storytelling aspects throughout media, is that when we have a love interest, there's a lot of times where we like to use the love interest nowadays to be what is essentially a sidekick. Mm-hmm. Instead of just making them, sit back and kind of have to deal with the ramifications of what's going on, we throw them in the mix and make their chemistry and their relationship more about not just their personalities and getting together and being together, but about the situation that they've been put into together. Interesting. I'm trying to think outside of Marvel of another love interest story that has that kind of dynamic. I'm thinking Anakin and Padme in the second Star Wars, at least. Yeah, for sure. She's doing shit. Sometimes she's taking the initiative.
Yeah, sometimes Anakin's a sidekick.
It's like, it's real. Until he murders that whole village of people.
Yeah. He does do that.
Yeah. So yeah, the love interest could be another kind of sidekick. We have the moral compass as a type of sidekick where it's again, Robin could slightly be put here. I think Watson could also be put here as well, where it's like, the main character is so fixated on what they're doing or performing the act, even if they are saying what they're doing is good, that maybe they lose exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That you need the sidekick to kind of come in and right some of their wrongs or tell them what's really what. And I think Sam Waters also does this. For sure. Quite a bit, where it's like, we need to, make sure that this is what we're doing. And, we're on the up and up when we're doing it. Not that we're, beating people to a pulp. And it's like, shit.
Well, I think, too, the opposite is also true, going back to Robin. Mm-hmm. If we look at Jason Todd, he is still I would say he's still more compass, but he's the one going down the bad road. Yeah. Batman now is go, oh my goodness, what did I do?
Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of ways you can play. Like the sidekick's got an infinite number of options.
Yeah.
And really you just need to pick one of the infinite number of options to go down. Because if you blur too many of them, then I think you just move it to that main character territory.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, I would think you kind of have to put them in a certain position. The last one I have here is a scene stealer. As far as, and I would say, Grogu is probably a scene stealer. It's someone who's, more charismatic than maybe the main character, but it's not their story we're following. But yeah, I would say, out of how many different categories you can put them in, and you can continue to list them. Like you said, if you try to mix and mash too many of them, I think you lose that separation from being the primary character, the main character, versus that secondary character.
For sure.
What do you think? Some top tier level sidekicks?
Well, I think we've gone over quite a few of them, but like if we had to put them in a system, I'd be like S tier, be like all three of the Robins.
Ooh,
I just think
tier ranking. Ooh, I didn't even prepare for that tier ranking. Okay, yeah.
So like all the Robins go up in the S tier as well as
well, not all the Robins, but the 3 Robins we talked about.
Yeah, okay.
There's some other Robins.
That's fair.
Batman's son, not good Robin.
Yeah,
not good at
Robin. But I mean, died too. Doesn't just like straight up get killed. I feel like there's certain iterations where his son is just straight up dead because he was Robin.
Well, Jason got killed.
Yeah, but that's not his direct son.
Well, right.
I mean, like his direct son.
Yeah, Damien. Yeah. Maybe, probably. I wouldn't doubt it. Bring him back with the Lazarus Pit. I'd believe that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, I think, goes in that S tier.
Hell yeah.
I think MJ, specifically from the Tom Holland one, can go in the A tier because I think that one's really good, and Ned too.
Okay. Yeah.
Brock and Misty, A tier.
Yeah, and they're not super great. I think they are just there because it's just like ensemble TV show and trying to put, a couple of sidekicks in there. I think I have one to add to S tier, one to add to A tier, and in S tier, S Donkey.
Okay.
A Chewbacca.
Okay. Super Mario movie that just came out, Luigi, A tier.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't like, I like seen it, just like kids had it on in the background, but I didn't actually watch it.
Yeah, I just sat down and watched it like a week ago. That was my first time seeing it.
I'll probably go back and watch it because the new one comes out.
Yeah, with Donald Glover as Yoshi.
This week? Next week?
Yeah, it's pretty soon.
Yeah. This month.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. Oh, Yoshi is injured. Well, yes, but also A tier.
Yeah. Yoshi is like almost a C tier level sidekick.
He lets you ride on his back, and he's eating people and fucking shitting them out.
But he doesn't like provide anything other than being a steed to the story when we look at it in the context of the game.
Steeds of sidekicks? Steeds are sidekicks. They might not be great. I'm not arguing it's going to be a higher tier. We can continue that conversation, but I'm just putting it together now in my mind that steeds are sidekicks.
Yeah, 100%. Never-ending story. God, what's the worst name of Never-ending Story? All right, you should watch that.
You know who Roach is?
What is that?
The Witcher?
No, I've never seen The Witcher. But
Roach is it's a funny situation because if the horse dies, he just gets another horse and he names it Roach.
Oh. Okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah. No, the horse in the Neverending Story, I would say, is a Steen sidekick, and it does play into the story because he's there for most of the story until he dies because he has to be left behind because he's sinking in like a tar pit.
Okay.
And so like you just have to watch the main character, who's this small child, cry over this horse that is sinking to its death in a tar pit, and you're like,
that's rough.
Oh. So I would say he's probably like an A tier Steed sidekick. But Yoshi, C tier. Like, he's just kind of there. I'd say Donkey Kong is a better sidekick than Yoshi.
We got to give Yoshi at least B tier. He's fucking dudes up.
Remember, But
name another sidekick companion that is going to eat that dude and then shit him out over a cliff. Done.
I don't know what that dragon does with Donkey, but I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would do that.
All right. And,
and I'm not putting her on the list whatsoever.
no.
So I'll give him B. I will not give him any higher.
No. All right. Fair. Yoshi's B.
Yeah.
Sidekick.
That's also where I put Donkey Kong in the context of the movie that came out. Because normally Donkey Kong's a villain. But when you look at it from that movie's perspective, he's a sidekick. He's B tier sidekick.
Okay.
And also speaking on Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, that's a sidekick.
That is a sidekick for sure.
Still B tier, but
yeah, I think that's another like definition sidekick where it's just like a smaller version of the bigger guy.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just has a little bit more like aloofness or comic reliefness to him.
For sure.
Yeah. Who else is a really good sidekick?
Spock for Star Trek.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A tier.
Nice.
A tier sidekick.
Okay. Watson? Depends on the story.
It does. He would flutter between A and S depending on which one you're talking about.
Fair enough. I would also, at least.
But I would give him S just on the premise of they've done it so well that I kind of want to forget about the bad ones.
Fair.
What we're doing with Robin, where it's just like we're just gonna focus on the 3 and the rest of them moves. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I would say Gus from Psych is the only one I'm ever going to put above S.
Oh,
and I think you'd have to watch to understand, but like just the way he's written in, he is the sidekick to Sean, but without him there is no story whatsoever. And he's like, I think the only other one that we can move up from S up to Gus tier, because that's what I follow now, is Gus tier, would be Sam from The Lord of the Rings. Like I think those are critically similar level characters on like how integral they are to the story, that without them in the story does not happen.
Yeah, the story just falls.
But they're not the main character.
Yeah, for sure.
As much as they are the main character, but they're sidekick.
Right. Yes. Okay.
So
through Sam we got there. I understand what you're saying. I've never seen the show. This guy's a Psych stan.
I am.
Yes.
Greatest show I've written.
That's a whole episode.
I'm dying on that hill. You can't. No one's changing my opinion there until they release a show that's better.
The Chappelle Show?
Better than the Chappelle Show.
What?
Yeah.
Perfect skits, perfect host, commentary on real life.
All those things. Also, it's like,
All right.
where's Dave Chappelle's sidekick?
Where's Dave Chappelle's sidekick?
Yeah, where's his love interest?
She's got multiples. Well, he's got his wife. She shows up one time, and then
one time? She's a one-time sidekick? Gus was there for 8 seasons.
he doesn't need a sidekick. He's got a bunch of sidekicks. John Frey, fucking Wayne Brady's in a couple episodes.
Dude, real quick, have you ever
Who's that dude that does the fucking robot in like 15 episodes?
But have you ever seen Bobby Lashley from WWE? It's literally just Wayne Brady if he was jacked.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, back to sidekick. Back to sidekick. Thanks, sidekick. We got on a tangent. Yeah. I'm trying to think of even bad sidekicks, but I can't even think of like a bad sidekick. There are sidekicks in video games too.
Well, there are bad sidekicks.
Sure.
There's bad Robins.
There is bad Robins. Damien's a terrible. Yeah. He doesn't ever listen. He's like, just going out and doing the shit on his own. It's like, well, just be your own guy then.
Yeah.
Just be your own anti-hero, really.
For sure.
For sure. Like, they try not to write him as bad because, like, they don't really want that, out there necessarily. I'm trying to think of any others, but I just, I'm blanking on any terrible sidekicks.
I just think Damien's such a good example of, like, a bad side.
Yeah, and it's just not working with the person you're supposed to be paired up with, and it's like it makes it rushed. And I understand that's their dynamic because it's a father-son dynamic. That's he was estranged for a while, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, that's a good example of a terrible one.
For sure.
I want to step into gaming for a little bit because we've had this thing in gaming where we introduce sidekicks in games, and it doesn't happen very often, I would say. But when they do it usually pretty well. And it's best done, I think, when you can either, one, get opportunities to control the sidekick in portions of the story, or two, they're just in the game with you consistently. So I haven't played necessarily all of these games, but in general, so we have like Cortana, who doesn't actually do anything physically in the game, but is a voice in your head when you're out on missions and by yourself. Atreus, I don't know if you've ever played.
I've never played God of War.
I haven't played the new God of Wars. I played the old one when we were doing the Greek thing, but I haven't done the Norse thing. So I don't know much about Atreus, but I do know that there are portions of the game where he can help. I don't know if you get to play with him.
That wouldn't be a question for me, but I do know they have the father-son dynamic, just like Damien at Batman. I don't know if
I don't think it's as negative. So. It's probably like a regular father-son dynamic that are stuck when father and son are stuck together for a period of time and kind of get irritated with each other type situation.
Probably.
Have different opinions of how to go about things. Where Damien is just like fuck you, dad. Like yeah, it's like, why are we even partners? Like mostly because Grandpa, I think, really in that instance.
Yeah, for sure.
Ellie, from I wanted to say Not Like Us, but that's
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us, yes.
Never played it.
Neither have I. I know of the game though, and I know there are portions where you do get to play with her, especially in the second one. I think the second one is just her. Spoilers. Have you seen the show?
No.
Okay, I won't say too much. It's a good show. You should actually watch it. It's really good.
Fallout's got sidekicks.
Fallout does have sidekicks. Fallout and all the Bethesda games have the companion
feature,
yeah, companion feature.
The one I would know the most about would be Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim.
Okay.
They have a ton of choices for you to have a sidekick. There's normally like someone you can hire from a tavern in almost every city. Sometimes you can pick them up just from wandering, but I think the most common one that people get is the one that gets assigned to you, kind of like in Whiterun.
Is it either?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I would say that's a sidekick. I would say there's probably, in the writing, and a lot of video game, studios do this where they have open options within a game like Skyrim or Fallout, but they have a canon ending that's like canon to the story writer's mind. So I'm assuming there's probably, for Fallout 4, it's probably, I can't think of her name, but it's the woman that you meet in like one of the first cities we played Fallout 4. Okay. I can't think of, she wears like a red coat and a red hat. Someone is watching the video screaming at the screen right now.
It's probably your brother.
Probably is.
What a nerd.
What a nerd.
I mean, obviously we talked about Mario and Luigi being in games.
Oh yeah, Yoshi. I think is another good example of like a in the game. I don't think there's any instance in the game where Luigi. See, I've only played the kind of standard games with the side-scrolling games, and never any of the other ones. So I don't actually know how much they implement to the story, but I know or the gameplay. But I know like Yoshi, obviously, there's parts of the levels and stuff like that where you need him because he can jump higher than Mario and stuff like that. And so he's critical in that way to the story. But yeah, I didn't even consider that. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say Luigi just as much too, and like by proxy Toad, and later down the line you can play as Peach as well too. Just because they can all like sling each other across places and like you can get further the more you have. So
fair. Where do we want to go next? Are sidekicks really necessary? How about that? We can start there. Do we think they're necessary for the story overall? And do we think they're necessary to complement a hero? Do we see heroes more with sidekicks and we're like, that's a really good hero and it's partially because of the sidekick? Or do we even need the sidekick really? Does Batman really need Robin?
I think that comes down to this list again that we've made, the double S, the Gus tier.
So the higher you,
the higher you're placing them, the more well done it is, and it progresses the story. The lower you go on that, they don't really do much for a story-driven thing, and you can have it without this going on. So, like, you could play Mario.
Yoshi's out.
Yoshi. You don't need Yoshi.
He's CQ. I'll come back to it.
Okay. Whereas, like, if you were to watch Lord of the Rings, you were to watch Psych, and Gus and or Sam are not there, it's completely different. And again, the story just may not exist without them, you know. And then we can get to like the Robins. When we look at the Robins, and like they do improve the story quite a bit. Like there is a lot to be gained from having Jason Todd and Dick Grayson, just being in these stories.
Sure.
And the further down this list we go, the more it's like, if you took Misty and Brock out, it would be different, but they're not like changing the story that much.
Fair.
So I think if you do it well, they're integral to the story and they need to be there. If they're just someone like Brock and Misty, they're like, they're okay being there, but they're not necessary. And then you get down to like Yoshi and you're like, he doesn't need to be there, but he's fun.
Okay. So I agree with everything you said.
Thank you.
But
okay.
No, I still want to know, do you think, so I'm talking kind of about the hero in this instance. Do you think, and I still, I guess, agree with the tier ranking system as far as I can think about the characters that we've put on it so far. But do you think the sidekick being there made the hero better? So, yes. So Sam makes Frodo better.
Yeah,
I like a lot.
Yeah, right. 100%. Mario does not get better because Yoshi's there.
That's okay. Yeah. That's where I was getting.
Yeah. I think again, Frodo, he is better because Sam is there. Without Sam, he may just be corrupted by the rain. He may never truly get rid of it. The hard decisions he has to face, he may never get through.
Sure.
You look at Batman, he doesn't need Robin in every instance, but there are a lot of instances where you look at it and you go, Batman could have lost his way if he didn't have a Robin.
Yeah.
Or he could have ended up like the Robin that he's now seeing play out and he's going, whoa, like I need to correct this. I might be doing something wrong. Sort of. But yeah, then you look at someone like Mario and you're like, yeah, you can ride on Yoshi. I don't think I made Mario better, but
that's
he was there. So
that's fair. The greatest sidekick of all time.
Well, I mean, we have two to pick from, in my opinion.
Sure.
And I think we can just divvy them out. You can have yours. I'll have mine.
All right.
So why do you think Gus was the best sidekick?
Yeah. I've never seen like so I have nothing to go off of there. Samwise Gamgee though, he does everything you want him to do. He gets kind of thrown into the situation, and he's kind of like lost and doesn't really know what to do in kind of the beginning phases of the situation. And you can see him progress from being just kind of this kind of like timid. I was told to, not lose you, Mr. Frodo, or whatever, right? Is it in those instances? And then goes from that to kind of controlling the situation. He saves him.
Mm-hmm.
He carries him, literally physically carries him.
Yep.
And kind of makes sure that the quest is completed by our, put quotations around, hero.
Yes.
Instance. Because I think there's a point where, much like maybe Obi-Wan and Anakin, where the dynamic almost flips there. And maybe it's only for 20 minutes, probably like actually 5 minutes of actual on-screen time, but 20-minute duration in the movie where Sam fights off Shelob. He enters Mordor and goes into the goblin orc like encampment in towers and kills a bunch of dudes and then saves Frodo. And then not only that, goes with him to Mount Doom and then have to at one point physically carry him. In that 20 minutes on screen, I think he's not even the sidekick. He just is the hero in that instance. But there's so many times along the path where we're just, I'd like Sam as the audience stand-in, because there's a lot of time when we're like, Frodo's listening to Gollum or Smeagol or whatever, depending on which part of the story we are in, to the personality of the creature. And we're, it's like, bro, Frodo, what are you doing? And Sam has like the same reaction, like, you can't trust him. Stop following you. Like, yeah, he's trying to, deceive us, and we see it happen in an instance, and Sam is going to leave because Frodo tells him to go away. And every time I watch it, it's heartbreaking because I'm like, oh my God, bro, you're just fucking up so bad. You're so corrupted right now. Is it? But Sam, he's like, no, I'm following him. And then that's when that's like right before he saves him. He kind of becomes the hero in that instance. So that's why Sam Wise Gamgee is the greatest sidekick of all time. But I'm willing to hear how this guy's guy.
Alrighty. So you have a childhood best friend, right? And sometimes your childhood best friend does not always make it to adulthood. Some people do, and those people they're like thick as thieves, right? Sean and Gus, they are those childhood best friends. They've been best friends since day one. Much like Frodo and Sam, they're there. They're thick as thieves. Nothing is going to separate them.
Like, go to the bar together, but dude's just his gardener.
They're thick as thieves. And so Sean lives a chaotic life where he bounces around. He's doing jobs, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, one day, he's finally brought in by the police for questioning. And he comes up with an excuse that he's psychic, and that's how he's solving all these crimes, even though he's really just observant and the cops are missing things that he can see. So he gets out of it, right? And he gets consulted to be on a case. And so what does he do? He busts into his best friend's office, who is just a pharmaceutical salesman. And he's like, hey, you know what we're going to do today? Kind of like he's Phineas. He just busts in there. I know what we're going to do today. We're going to go solve a crime. And he goes, no, I'm going to be working. Got to sell pharmaceuticals. He's like, there's going to be forensics guys there. And that's how he gets him on board. And from there, they just continue this chain of solving crimes. And at the end of the pilot episode, you get this moment where he was like, yeah, that was fun, but what else is there to do? Like, we solved our one crime. Haha, that was fun. We're going to be... He's like, I rented a building, so we got to do this for at least 6 more months. And so you follow this story. And Sean does just keep dragging Gus back into it. But you get, every time you get to a point in the case where it's like, Sean doesn't have enough knowledge of the world. Even though he's traveled, he's lived multiple experiences, Gus provides this needed support that would not be possible without him.
Okay.
So much like Sam kills Shelob and Sam carries Frodo, Gus knows about pharmaceutical drugs. Gus knows about safe cracking because he subscribes to Safe Cracking magazine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gus loves Pluto. It's very important to the show. Not to Sean, except for the comedy bits. But their dynamic of, even though Gus clearly does not always want to be doing psych or needs to be a pharmaceutical salesman, he is never going to leave Sean behind. And there are plenty of episodes where you'll go through and you'll see that dynamic split, like what they do with Sam leaving for that off-screen period and then coming back and being there immediately bright-nosed when Frodo needs him. You see that happen with Sean. There's ones where it's like Sean and Gus, they separate, and so Gus goes and he's going to solve a crime with Lassiter, who's another main character, but he's left Sean, right? And now Sean needs someone, so he picks up the love interest, right? And then they annoy each other so much they swap back, and he's just like, nah, it's because they both go off and do the same thing they were going to do, like they do. They find their way to each other. Sure. So there's that one. There's an episode where Sean gets shot, he's kidnapped, And Gus is, there's layers. And he's the determining factor on how you find Sean.
Okay.
Like, I mean, obviously his dad's there, and like his dad knows how to track down Sean, but without Gus, you don't ever get Sean back. Like, Sean's just a goner. There's at the end, and this is kind of a spoiler, but I don't really care. You get to a episode at the very end where it's all focused on your sidekick of Gus, and he's going through night terrors, and he's having. It's kind of a trippy episode too, because it all involves like sleep, what is reality, what is not reality.
Oh, cool.
And it's like every time Sean leaves Gus, something bad happens. Like Sean parks at a gas station, goes inside. Kurt Smith of Tears for Fears pulls up right next to him, and because they've interacted so many times, Kurt Smith knows who Sean and Gus are, and Gus goes, "Kurt Smith," and he goes, "Guster," and then a zombie eats Kurt Smith for no reason.
Okay.
And then they proceed to swarm the car, and then, and then Gus wakes up.
Sure.
But by the proxy of that, there's also an episode where Sean, he's going through his whole thing, and he's finally caught, like, doing something he necessarily shouldn't be. And they're like, how did he get caught, right? But he now has to go back in, like, what's that? What's the thing with Scrooge? Ebenezer Scrooge, not McDuck. Because you go through Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future.
Sure.
He essentially does that.
Okay.
But it's like, what would happen if Sean never came back to Santa Barbara? What would Gus be doing? What would his dad be doing? What would blah? And it's like, it's told from Sean's perspective, and so he's a cocky, arrogant guy. That is, like, you see these cocky, arrogant things happen. But so, like, Gus has married a woman that isn't necessarily loyal, and his son just keeps going, "You're not my daddy." So, but they always come back to each other, and I think the biggest one is at the end of that episode specifically, where it's just, or no, it's at the end of the Yin Yang saga, where they are literally about to die, and you do have a villain turn into the good guy there in that episode, so it is fun there. But they're about to die, and when Gus is about to be killed, he's just talking to Sean, and he goes, if you were to bust in my office however many years ago, I think it's 6 at this point in the series, 6 years ago, I'd do it all over again. And it just really, like, solidifies, like, they're always going to be there for each other. There's never going to be a misstep. Even if they separate for a little bit, they're always coming back to each other, and one cannot function without the other. And I think that's why they are the best of sidekicks. On top of that, they constantly poke fun at, like, the sidekick trope too while doing all this. True. So, like, I think the biggest quote is, "Gus, don't be the only major black cable television network lead," or something like that. Where it's just like, because all the time he's like, "Gus, don't be blank, like, don't be a gooey chocolate cookie." Just stupid things like that. But it's like, that's the most major one, where it's like, "Gus, don't be the only black major lead on a major national cable television network show," or something like that. So them also poking fun, it also drives it home.
Oh yeah. I've never seen it, so I'm gonna take your word on it. And you made some valid points. I'm still gonna stick with Sandlines, but that's because I know Sam.
No, that's fair.
But I do wanna mention one other hero here before we wrap up, or sidekick that becomes a hero. It does happen from time to time. When we get these sidekicks who become heroes, and it often happens in superheroes, where the sidekick will grow, and eventually we have to grow them, or write them growing up, as age or within their own character. And I think it happens a bunch, and I think there's a lot of times where it's not great. And I have a point I'm going to make here in a minute, but we look at a lot of the Batman sidekicks that are Robin, and we see a lot of Robins just become other heroes. Mm-hmm. Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing. Jason Todd becomes Red Hood. I don't know if Tim Drake actually becomes anyone ever, or if he just does, or if he's just is Robin. I guess I don't know what has happened between him and Damian. But that's besides the point, is that we get this one sidekick, and that is Falcon, Sam Wilson, who takes up the mantle And I like this instance of the sidekick becoming the hero in particular, just because it's not like other instances that we've seen before where they become their own hero and then they get a different name or a different moniker. Or we've seen Damian become Batman in instances before, but then we always revert back to Bruce. You know, there's a lot of times where we let the hero or the sidekick become the hero and take up the same mantle that they were carrying. There's a lot of times where we revert them. And for Sam Wilson, they never reverted that. They never reverted him back to Falcon and Steve as Captain America. We have given Steve back Captain America after he, like retired or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we just ended up with 2 Captain Americas, which is funny. I don't think we need to, I don't think it's necessary to limit, just the title to one individual and be like, we can only have one guy with this moniker or whatever. We could say there's no reason we can't have multiple Batman. Yeah. Like Dick Grayson could also just been Batman. There's reasons why he didn't want to.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say narratively it doesn't make sense, but I get the point you make.
Yeah. Like we could have wrote him to do so, but yeah, for sure we do have reasons why he's not. Read the comic books. Titans is another. The show Titans is not a great show, but you can also see the dynamics there, which I actually like the show for the Robin Batman dynamics. If you have never seen Titans, it's a show based on the characters that we've seen in Teen Titans for the most part, and the show is not written well. The CGI is terrible in some instances. But the dynamic between Dick Grayson leaving from being Robin, dealing with him being Robin, Batman is there, played by, I don't even know who. We got some old, kind of older gentlemen. No offense, but I couldn't see him suiting up as Batman and fighting people. And then we also get the Jason Todd storyline as well, and we get to see all 3 of them interact. And then Tim Drake actually shows up on the show, but I never got that far because it's a terrible show. Yeah, I think that we had a great conversation. I think we, we ranked out some of those sidekicks. Maybe we have another episode where we just rank sidekicks. We'll come with a predetermined list of a bunch of sidekicks and then rank them out in the tiers. So I do like that. And there's so many sidekicks. We could go all day syncing up different IPs and the sidekicks they have. But I think, any great hero that we've had in media, I think has a really good sidekick beside them or behind them or however you want to speak about it. We got Batman, Robin, Shrek and Donkey, Frodo and Sam.
Say Sean and Gus. Don't leave money.
Sean and Gus.
All right. There we go.
And I think it creates a much better story when we have this, secondary character, not even a sidekick necessarily, but a secondary character. Any closing
remarks?
Closing remarks?
I do have one, and it's just a disclaimer. Just because we named your favorite character in a story as a sidekick doesn't mean they're not important to the story.
For sure.
Like as we've discussed, Sam's very important to the story. And if you're out here saying that Yoshi was the most important thing in Mario, you're wrong. Okay, like it's okay to be wrong. You can still like Yoshi.
I got proven down from it as a cat. Yeah, I also thought he was the shit, but it, after we had the second conversation about it, I brought him back down, and I almost forgot about a hot take. So my nerd hot take for the episode.
Okay.
Darth Vader's a sidekick. Darth Vader's a sidekick.
Contextually, he is a sidekick until the 6th movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't know. I feel like the Sean and Gus thing's been a hot take this whole time.
That's fair.
Because I don't think there's many people who are gonna watch this and go, yeah, I know what he's talking about. So
that's fair.
I mean, I'm sure there are people who've seen Cycle though, but the ones who haven't are gonna be like, what is this guy talking about? So,
but Darth Vader is a sidekick. I mean, that might be a hot take.
Here's my hot take. specifically for nerds. All 6 of your Pokemon are sidekicks.
All right. Yeah.
There's no story without him. Nope. You know what?
Pikachu's a sidekick. We didn't even fucking talk about it.
I got a better one. You are the sidekick. The Pokemon are the main story. The Pokemon, they're going to be there without you. You're nothing without them mods. Your story is, I'm going back. The Pokemon are the sidekicks, but they're the Grogu roles.
Yes. Okay. They're Grogu.
That's him. Yep. I figured it out. Final answer.
Grogu? Pikachu is Grogu?
Pikachu is Grogu.
Grogu is Pikachu.
Oh, yeah. But obviously. But like, we're just using it as the example. Like, sure. Grogu role. But yeah, Pikachu.
All right. We got to end this episode. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Let us know who your favorite sidekick is, obviously, other than Sam, because he's the best.
Real quick, gotta rate Pikachu. S.
For sure, S tier. Pikachu is definitely S tier.
All right.
S tier. For sure. Yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and have a good day.